Hello, everybody, and welcome to Stoked, the ultimate Star Trek online podcast. My name is Chris.
My name is Jeremy, and I am not happy with my hair today.
I'm sorry, buddy.
I know. It's in an awkward stage. We'll get past it.
In episode 37 last week, he was in a good spot.
Yeah.
This is episode 38. This will be the awkward stage episode. And
so stay tuned for hair updates.
39, gonna be great. Coming up in this episode, besides just all the hair talk, we have the engineering report, the highly anticipated engineering report.
We finally got an actual report rather than just little tidbits thrown in the thread over time.
So we're going to cover some of the best parts of that. And then we've also got ship art updates.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, I'm not a big ship guy, but I know you are.
Yeah,
judging by the 3 or 4 dozen ship models you've got in your office up there.
Yeah, I do have a few things to say about the ship art. And then in the middle of the show, the kind of the meat in the sandwich, we'll have a new math segment. What are we doing in math today?
I'm going to talk about all of the weaponry that you and your away team can use. Pros and cons, different
ground
roles.
combat.
Yeah, ground
combat weapons, pros and cons, stuff like that.
Which also leads well into the final part of the show we'll be doing today is our mail segment.
Yeah, we've been really loving this Q&A segment we've been doing with you guys. And we're going to do this one. We're going to ask the question and give you our answer and thoughts to kind of get the ball rolling. So then in the next episode, when we feature your answers, it's going to be all your stuff. All right. With that said, let's jump into this engineering report.
Let's do it.
Now, the main report I'd say to take away from it was a lot of fixes.
Yeah, almost completely. Like this is a list of things that we still need to fix.
Yeah, which to you indicates that the primary focus right now might not be content generation, but more of fixes and polish.
Which has a good side to it, but
it's definitely needed.
You know, my personal feeling is that the content well of this game is a little shallow. So
but look at it like this.
I don't know that you can make a choice of one or the other.
What if you made an analogy of Windows Vista to Windows 7? So like Windows 7 is based on Vista.
Right.
So what you need to do is take Vista, get it launched, recognize what's good, and then tweak, repair, modify what's not, and launch Windows 7.
I don't think I really like that analogy because Vista was terrible.
Well, and I'm not saying that this is terrible. What I'm saying, though, is you can do a release, and you can do updates to just... I'm okay with just things that are fixes. I mean, I want new content.
Oh, yeah, no, I want fixes more than content, to be sure. I just don't know that they can sacrifice content.
I know. I just don't want anybody to get all up in arms about it only being fixes because I don't want to discourage that.
Right.
You know, I want my fixes.
All that said, there were a few new features that have come out in this that finally have confirmation. These will probably be included in 2.0. But their feature list is really a rough draft at this point. So.
And so may or may not be there, but the one I like is sounds like ship interiors may have some functionality. Yeah,
including basically exactly what you were asking for before, what they're calling a make consumables minigame.
Yeah, and you know, really, when we started talking about ship interiors and making them functional, the two things that really jumped out to me is, number one, please try to make it all one instance or as minimal instancing as possible. You know, I'd like it to be smooth. I want to roam my ship. I don't want to have
to zone into the hallway and then zone into the sick bay.
Yeah, I don't want to
zone back to the hallway.
I want to roam around. Right. And the other thing, so that aside, of course, that would be just an aesthetics thing. But the other thing is I'd really like the iconic spots in the ship to have some genuine functionality.
Like 10 forward or the lounge area and sick bay and engineering.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll be completely honest with you. If there isn't any zoning involved, if there is no zoning involved, I'm totally cool with walking from my bridge to the transporter too.
Yeah.
Especially if in sector space I could be inside my ship while traveling. You tie those two things together. And
which is an idea I've brought up before. I really like the idea of being... getting, really just scrapping sector space and having your ship interior take place of it.
Yeah, especially if there's things for you to be doing while in there.
Right.
And just... I'm okay with having to spend some time in my ship if you give me some things to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So that's one thing that's in there that I'm kind of looking forward to. Now,
on the subject of minigames, they are going to be putting in Dabo. Now, the big thing about that in this engineering report that they released is that it's going to include a holographic Leeta.
Which, is interesting. And something that Star Trek has played with a little bit, bring back a dead character, or presumably dead.
Right.
With a hologram. Tasha.
Yeah.
You know, her goodbye was a hologram. Or, you know, it's something they've played with.
Leeta's not dead.
I'm just
saying,
you could bring back iconic characters this way in the game if they had the rights to use them. that would
That's kind of
necessarily
why
be
I
around.
find this interesting. You know, I don't know if you're aware, but the whole Get Leeta thing was a community effort.
Which is awesome that now they're really trying to pull it off.
Yeah, I really actually want to give you guys a thumbs up. I know that some of the guys involved in that effort actually watched the show because they've tried to get us to mention it on the show.
Actually, I think we did actually give it a quick nod.
Did we?
Yeah, a little bit. Just a quick one.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
But you're appearing in the engineering reports, and you've actually got confirmation that Leeta is going to be in the game.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's the exact character with or without voiceover, we don't really know.
Well, that's the fun thing about a hologram is you can give it quirks. Like, oh, the old hologram's not working so good, so it's not rendering her quite right, or her voice is a little off. Of course, it's all text anyways, so you don't have to have a voice. And, it's...
Well, but it could be, if it's going to be a mini game interface and it takes you out of the game and you're actually like on some sort of a Dabo table on your screen,
whatever,
and you win and you got Leeta's voice.
Probably
going,
like a Dabo window comes up, I bet.
Probably.
Yeah.
Something like that. So they could, theoretically, but we don't know.
Oh boy, if they, I'm sure they could. That would be great to get the actress in to have her do that.
Yeah.
And then, what do you think about this stuff about the Federation Diplomatic Corps?
Well, okay.
Well, I don't really know.
This is the first time we've started to get some real solid details about the fact that it's going to be a separate realm of experience gain and a separate form of character advancement. Like you can be a Rear Admiral 5
we should get somebody
military,
we need to get somebody on the show.
And then you can be a diplomat level 1.
I think we got it, because that's huge change.
But you know what I'm really unhappy about, and I think a good portion of the audience out there is as well? This is the Federation Diplomatic Corps. That means that this content is completely off limits to Klingons.
Unless you could play a Klingon
A Klingon diplomat? I mean, I know they exist, but it's not really...
You are being a racist.
Maybe a little bit. But you know what? Those darn bump heads got it coming to them.
You know what? We'll touch... Nice. Thanks.
Yeah.
We'll touch base with Cryptic and see if we can get somebody on the show to get some more details on that, because I don't want to presume too much, because we could be playing with some huge concepts here.
Could be.
We'll talk about that more with them, maybe. Missions. Now, boy, oh boy, let's get into this.
Let me do some real quick math. You talk for a minute.
So we have been looking over the last few updates at kind of the missions that have been coming out, and we've got in this next update that should be rolling out
should be all in
July,
2.0.
maybe early August.
Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, we're gonna be looking at 8 new Klingon missions, 4 new diplomatic missions, 5 new
Tier 6 missions, because they're going to raise the level cap.
Okay, I'm already getting the math mixed up there.
That's why I added it up for you.
And then,
so this is 17 new missions coming with
17 new missions, and then kicking off after that weekly missions there on out.
Yeah, hopefully if they can hold to a weekly timetable.
This has been an interesting discussion that we were having before the show.
I just said actually earlier in the show, I think the content well is shallow, so this will help some, but go on.
A lot of really awesome stuff has come out over the season updates, but there haven't really actually been very much in terms of missions added to the game.
No.
It's really been more about adding things like improving...
I think our count of including missions, special task forces, and fleet actions came up with a total of 10 new things added to the game in those areas since launch.
Yeah, so if you review all of them, it's been 10 new things, and it seems like possibly this is trying to address... Because 10 is not really all that much.
No.
And so this is maybe trying to start to address that.
Honestly, I could probably run 10 missions in a day. So...
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you could, yeah.
I mean, the original timeline, if I recall from the beta days, was they were saying that you could run an episode in about half hour to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's only 10 to maybe 12 hours of gameplay there.
Don't want to, again, discourage the improvements.
No. We're not poo-pooing on the fact that these guys are adding things to the game. We're all for that.
We are. That is exactly what's happening, and it's a lot of awesome stuff. But now I am glad to start seeing some missions are going to be laid down. And while I'd like to see even more, I'm glad to see weekly.
Yeah. I'm really hoping that they can stick to that. The really cool thing about the weekly thing, as I mentioned here in the notes, they're going to be scalable, which means that these weekly missions that come out are going to be big story arcs that everybody in the game can experience, whether they're a Lieutenant 1 or a Rear Admiral 5 or a Vice Admiral 1.
I'm remaining skeptical of weekly missions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to try it out.
The thing I'm really worried about is if this is going to be their new content rollout thing. Like, are we only going to see from this point forward? Because we know that it takes them a while. Right? It takes them a lot of energy to get a single content push, a single mission created there. And maybe it's because they're focusing on fixes, which is not a bad thing. But I mean, if they have to put a new mission out every single week,
why not do it? Why not reserve season updates for big things like factions or big changes, and and come up with an alternative way to roll out, just to continually add new missions.
I'm all for new missions. What I'm worried about is that this is all that we're going to see from now on in terms of mission, is that we're going to get a new mission every week, which is cool, and that's all we're going to get.
And then, what do you think? Nothing in season updates?
That's kind of what I'm worried about. I'm worried that their content team is going to be spending so much time of every single day doing weekly missions.
I think it's more likely now. I think it's more likely now that they're reaching a point in the game cycle where they have a lot of existing things rendered and developed. So now they have a pipeline and a process to create these games much more streamlined. Now they have a staff that's experienced with working with this engine for a while and is becoming more comfortable with it. And I think they've also got a testing system now online that they didn't have months ago, so they couldn't properly execute, test, and then deploy. They've worked that out. So now I think they're able to streamline like smaller, kind of more throwaway games. They're not going to be the missions we love, but they're going to be missions we're going to play. And then they're going to
but they're talking them up as being these big story arcs.
Well, that's what they do. That's you.
You kind of got it. You can't say, "Well, we're going to have something new," but it's kind of going to suck.
We call ourselves the ultimate Star Trek Online podcast. You know,
that's totally true.
Well,
man.
Okay, that is true. And then I think in season updates, you're going to see like the big cherries drop. You know, the really tasty ones.
Playable Romulans.
Yeah, like the good stuff. It's going to be like awesome. They just opened up this whole area of the galaxy map.
Sure.
That's my theory. That's my prediction.
I hope.
We'll see.
All I hope is that this weekly content is not going to take away from the fact that we need new special task forces for the high-end players. We need new exploration missions so that we're not playing the same 3 templates over and over and over again. Klingons need more of their own missions, which is going to be included in 2.0, but, I mean, they're only going to have 8. 8 is a terrible number when that's all they have, you know?
Yep.
So they need more, and, just keep it coming.
Yeah. Well, that's what they're doing, though.
I know.
They're doing exactly that. It's just you're just worried about if they can pull it off.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand.
And I honestly, weekly sounds really cool, but I don't think it's enough.
Well,
I think that we need weekly missions. At this point, I think that we need weekly missions in addition to another 5, 10, dozen with every big content push.
That's kind of what I was saying. Only maybe not that many, but I was kind of saying big. You'll still get a bunch of missions sprinkled in.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I just hope we get them.
And then the other thing too is, of course, what really kind of plays in here is if the user-generated content system begins to ramp up and can produce some.
But I would like to point out that there is no mention of the user-generated content in the engineering report, so we know it's still a very long-term project.
If
we're still excited about it,
if maybe even ever going to be, who knows?
Right.
Maybe if we get someone on the show, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
It sounds like we need to do that.
Yeah.
All right. So anything else, or should we move on to the ship?
Let's move on.
Should we move on to the ship art?
I know what you almost said.
I almost said the other thing. There is some information about the Intrepid class. Movable pylons, that's going to be, or nacelles.
And some minor art tweaks, just to make it look a little more canon, they said.
You can check out our show notes for a link to the forum on that. The show notes are Jupiter Broadcast.
But we don't have any pictures, so moving on.
Moving on, a lot of pictures of new changes to a new Galaxy-class starship model. A lot of people, myself included, were critical of the original.
The saucer.
Well, and the neck, and the nacelles.
So the whole thing.
Actually, they flattened out the engineering section a little bit. I kind of dug that. I like that being a little wider since the saucer section was so big. The main thing I didn't like about the Galaxy class original was the shuttle bay. It just kind of was immediately chopped off.
Yeah, I didn't even notice when I was looking at it in game, but when you showed me before and after pictures, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, and the other thing they did in the new one is so they improved. In the new one, they improved the shuttle bay, made it much more rounded and nice. And I think maybe at least in the shots I saw, it looked like they brought in the neck a little bit between the engineering section.
It looks like it just flat out connects better.
Yeah, and the top area looks like it's better connected to the neck.
Yeah.
So major props to it's Captain Logan, right?
Captain Logan,
the new guy over there at Cryptic.
I don't think he's a new guy. I think he used to just be on the ship content team, and now he's leading the ship content team.
You know what? I like what I'm seeing.
So do I.
Now let's talk about the Galaxy X.
Okay.
Now the Galaxy X is a pretty hotly debated ship for many different reasons, between its look and the way you have to get it by having referrals and things like that.
You have to refer 5 people into the game.
It kind of made a controversy around that, and understandably so.
But let me just point out another controversy. Some people have already referred 5 people, don't have their ship yet, because the ship's not ready.
Right.
It's on Tribble right now, but
yeah.
Yeah.
And in our show notes, we've got links to some information. One of the things this ship has is this massive cannon gun, right? You remember that from All Good Things.
Yeah,
they fly up and they
cannon.
blow up a Klingon ship as they fly right through it. They use that huge cannon. Well, the ship has that. And it shoots at 8,500 damage a shot.
Yeah. Which is really, when you're in tier 5, that's about the same equivalent as a regular torpedo shot or a beam overload.
Yeah.
The phaser cannon is basically a built-in beam overload.
With a new animation, right?
Yes.
A big, thick animation.
It comes out of the bottom of the ship, and it's just like this gigantic beam, about half the size of the saucer.
Yeah, it's a real big beam.
Yeah.
And it has this is the part I don't like, a 2-minute cooldown.
Not just a 2-minute cooldown, but keep in mind you're flying a Galaxy.
You're flying a Galaxy, and it's
you can't
not
target.
Yeah, it's you point.
Yeah,
and
you
fire.
point and fire. So good luck. But on the other hand, I mean, it's got like I think it's an 8-kilometer range, and it hits everything in that cylinder. Yeah, so if you can somehow line up several ships in there and bring that to bear,
like
on
a couple of cubes.
Yeah, or a whole flock of fighters from a Vaucouve and a PvP match or something. Boom, all of them are gone.
It's definitely the kill shot, or at least it's the. It might even be your opening shot, perhaps. It might be. And then let it cool down, and then be your kill shot.
Now, it basically is, like I said, a beam overload. It takes 50 of your weapon energy, which you then have to regenerate, and but it's not a weapon. It's an ability.
So that means it doesn't take a weapon slot.
That's right.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's looking like a pretty good ship. I don't think I will fly this ship. I don't think I like it. I don't like the look of it, but it's looking like
you hate the turn rate in the Galaxies too.
I do, but I like
you guys
extra weapon slots, and I like that big old cannon.
The very first time that he took out a Galaxy from Deep Space Nine and took it out into a Deep Space encounter, his very first reaction when he tried to turn the ship was, "Oh no!"
I got out of Deep Space Nine. I flew out into sector space, and I thought, well, let's take it into a Deep Space encounter. I zone in. And of course, you immediately just start getting ambushed.
Yeah.
I fire up my impulse,
and he tries to turn around,
and the ship's just like barely moving. and of course, I had just played the Defiant class.
Yeah.
An escort, and that's.
I should mention also, this is before they slightly increased the turn rate, and this was before that.
Yeah. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I'll be playing the Galaxy X Plus. I'm not a huge fan of the third pylon. I don't know.
I think it's ugly as sin, really.
I thought it was a little tacked on and all good things just to make it look more advanced.
Right.
But
yeah.
Now, okay.
Side note, I really hated Riker in that episode as well. He was a gigantic dick.
Yeah. What if they let you go faster in sector space? Because it has that
transwarp thing. It's supposed to go to warp 13 or whatever.
All over that.
Oh, whatever.
No, that'd be awesome. Yeah. It'd be like, if you had a mount.
Everybody knows when you go past warp 10, you become a little lizard thing and make out with your captain. Yeah. Everybody knows that. It's common knowledge. You can't deny that.
Good point.
So that must have been happening all the time when they were going to 13.
Yeah. Unless that third nacelle somehow is the trick.
Yeah, that's the anti-lizard nacelle.
Yeah. Anti-lisometric fields are generated, and you're safe.
And then no makey outies.
Right. So check out the pictures of the Galaxy X if you're interested in that. And then lastly, there's a article over at 10-Ton Hammer all about your deflector dish. Ton? Oh, right, I do.
10-ton.
10-ton
like weight.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm such a moron.
10-ton.
And then Massively has basics on ground combat.
Mm-hmm. Which might come in handy if you're also going to watch the upcoming math segment. They kind of have some things in common. Go hand in hand together there.
And then there's a consolidated list of the recent mechanic changes to the game over in the forum. Find all of those links over at the show notes for this episode. We won't go over all that in here.
JupiterBroadcasting.com. Click on the thing. It's down there.
There you go. All right. Well, let's get mathed.
All right, guys, strap up and let's move out. We're going into ground combat this time, and I'm going to tell you the pros and cons of each special attack available on any ranged weaponry. Yes, I'm only going to cover ranged weaponry, basically because melee weapons come down to one thing. Batleths are better than fists. Now, obviously, there's more to it than just that, but that's a separate math segment unto itself. Let's focus for now on guns. Big guns. The focus of this math segment is going to be on the pros and cons and some strategies surrounding each different type of special attack available on separate weapons. Now, I need to apologize in advance that this is going to be a bit of a dry segment. Not so much fun as it is information, unless you find information fun. So how I'm going to do this is go through every single special attack that you can do in the game, from the quickest recharge to the slowest. All right, let's do it. The quickest of them all is the plain old stun beam. Now, this is a very basic attack, single target, expose, and hold. You'll notice, though, that it's listed first. This special attack has a very fast recharge of only about 6 seconds. If you equip 2 of these babies, you can potentially fire off this special attack stun about every 3 seconds. You only want to use these in a situation where you and your group don't need the extra damage, because a stun beam only does, at Mark 10 damage. I'm not kidding, they're wimpy. Now, next up on the list is a compression bolt. This is also a pistol. It's a single target exploit plus a minor knockback. Now, the fact that this is an exploit weapon with a very fast recharge, right around 7 seconds, allows for many exploits. In fact, if you equip 2 of these suckers and you've got a friend that's exposing the enemy, you can potentially melt somebody's face about every 4 to 5 seconds. And because this special attack can go off so frequently, this weapon has some of the highest DPS over time of any weapon that you can equip. And as such, these weapons make a great boss killer. Now, still in the realm of pistol is the dual pistol bolt spray. Pew pew pew! This is a cone AoE that exposes up to 5 targets within its range of effect. This is great if your primary role in a group is to expose the enemy. The last of the pistol-type weapons is the wide beam, which can do a cone AoE similar to the bolt spray, but it's slower. It hits a lot harder. This is great for tanks that are trying to gain the attention of as many people in front of them as possible because of the quick recharge and high damage. And now we're into the realm of rifles. People like the bigger guns, so these are probably where you want to pay a little bit closer attention. Sniper shots, single target exploit plus knockback. These are great against bosses, just like the compression bolts are. These are single target, high damage. In fact, sniper shots have the highest single damage per shot that you can get out of any weapon type. Now, the next rifle on this list is the high density beam, which is a cylinder AoE. That means it's like a hallway right in front of you that's an expose plus repel. Let me explain real quick why repel is different from knockback. Knockback does an interrupt and frequently knocks the bad guys right on their tush. Repel does not. All it does is push. This is really good, though, for environmental hazards. You know the ones I'm talking about. Special Task Force Infected is notorious for these in the boss room. Repel the enemy right into the plasma. Your job's done. Next up is the full auto sweep. This is the first one on my list that I'm actually going to recommend that you not use. This is because it is a wide cone AoE that is an expose of several targets. However, there's already something for this. The bolt spray. Dual pistols have a faster recharge and hit more targets. So the next one on the list is the split beam. It can be used very handily to exploit several targets at a time, not as well as some others. This is another one that I would not recommend. You see, while this weapon has among the highest potential damage per use, because of the recharge, it actually works out to be quite low over time. Plus, the split beam has a cone of only 15 degrees, and it's hard to line up the bad guys in that sight. Okay, now these final 4 that I'm going to talk about have some of the highest potential damage in a single burst of any weapons in the game. However, each of their recharge on these special moves is over 10 seconds, so they need to be used with care. The first of these is the Arc Wave. This is another cylinder AoE, this time with an expose and knockback. Again, very useful for environmental hazards. The high knockback potential on the Arc Wave can potentially toss your enemies like rag dolls clear across the room. In fact, if you're going to get this type of weapon, I highly encourage you to invest in a version that has extra knockback potential. It's great fun. Now, you must be careful if you're aiming to get yourself an Arc Wave to not confuse it with the next one on the list, the Pulse Wave. Great for choke points. This is really, really great in combination with people using high-density beams. You can potentially just mow down enemies if you can get them in a choke point. Not so great on external maps. The Pulse Wave has the highest single-use damage potential plus high knockback, same as an Arc Wave, but a very slow recharge. We're talking 14 seconds here. But even slower than that is the auto-targeting beam. It's a 30-degree cone in front of you, and it is an exploit. Now, I see a lot of people liking to use these. I don't know why. The recharge on these is over 15 seconds. Sure, it's got a fine arc and decent damage, but keep in mind that you can't pick who you hit, and the damage over time when you're just spamming this sucker is much lower than you can get with several other weapon types, because it just recharges too slowly. And last, and in some ways least, is the Energy Blast. This is a targeted AoE plus expose plus huge knockback. You're basically launching a grenade right into the group of bad guys and watching it go explodey in their face. This is another weapon that's really good for choke points where you can get a large number of people in a tight amount of space. However, since you can't aim the direction that the bad guys are knocked into, they just kind of spread out in every direction, it's not as handy as you might think. And that's the end of the big list. What I would encourage you to do is take a look at the list that I put in the show note that includes my recommendations and the recharge times, and form up a few good tactics of your own. In fact, if you come up with a really great one, let me know about it. Send your recommendations over to Jeremy at JupiterBroadcasting.com. And that's it for this week's math, guys. I hope you're ready to go out and get blasted, because you just got math. Pew pew!
All right, now that you got your face mathed off, let's talk little bit of question and answer segment. Next episode, I think we'll take your questions, or maybe it depends on how much we get.
Yeah.
But the question we're going to ask you.
Well, but basically, when we read your answers for the last episode, we forgot to ask you a question.
Oh, well, that is true. So now it is time for the question so that you can give us an answer.
Yeah.
And you guys have been awesome. So we really like doing this. Next week's question is this. Give us your suggestions for ground combat improvements.
Yeah.
How would you do it? Now, we're going to give you our ideas, so why don't you kick off, dude?
So hopefully this will get your brain juices flowing, and then you can give us some good ones. Now, I'm about to give you a suggestion that's probably going to blow your face off again. We don't want suggestions like this, because this is completely outlandish and far-fetched.
Probably will never be able to happen.
No.
So we probably should try to keep it within the realm of possibility.
Yeah. Don't be Jeremy.
But if we're going to be
like
Jeremy.
But here I go.
Okay.
I'm going to be like Jeremy.
All right.
My suggestion is this.
So fitting.
Scrap it. Start over from the beginning and turn the whole freaking ground system into a third-person cover shooter.
That is radical.
A la Gears of War, Mass Effect 2 and 1, and Gears of War 2.
You don't like first-person shooters.
I hate first-person shooters.
So why would you suggest
I love third-person shooters.
Yeah.
But it goes on beyond that, because remember during development, when we used to hear the developers talking about ground combat, they continually told us it's going to be slow, it's going to be tactical, you're going to have to make use of your cover.
Right.
It's not going to be a run and gun, as they called it.
Which, yeah.
Guess what it turned into?
Yeah, it did.
It is a run and gun.
When do you take cover? Well, I guess you do it at the higher levels, but hardly ever like at the captain levels.
The only time that I've found the need to take cover in the current system is when I have the difficulty level up too high, and I need to break line of sight so that I can hit a heal.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
But that's it.
So you would go something where you're right down with the gun, and really kind of more Gears of War. Really, would you? Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
The whole thing. Now, let me take it beyond that, because not only did the developers early on start to imply that that's how it would be, but that's how Star Trek is. If you watch any major battle scene in any episode, whether it be original series, Next Generation, DS9, there are episodes.
Always taking cover.
Every single time they'll be ducking and rolling into cover behind a barrel so they can peek up over the top and snipe somebody.
You're pulling the cannon card.
Yeah.
Well done, sir.
That's what I'm doing.
All right. Now, can I give you my idea? Here's what I think would help, and maybe is a starting point. All right.
Maybe we can work towards a compromise.
Let's see if we can get there.
All right.
I would like to see combat faster. I know it used to be faster. I'd like to see it faster. I think it should be so that I need to focus.
Now,
I shouldn't be able to read email while I'm doing ground combat.
Do you want it faster because it's not very interesting and you want it over faster,
or
because you want it to be more exciting?
Both. I can't wait to get through it most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'd like to see really is the need for a little bit of pressure. I need it to be a little stressful, but not stressful in a game fighting mechanic way, but stressful in a way that I need to stay on top of what my boss are doing. I need to stay on top of what order I am executing things in. Right now, there'll be entire times where I just let my boss do whatever they're doing because honestly, I don't need them, or
they don't need you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel like if it was a little faster, like I had a little less time, maybe that would help. Additionally, I'd like to see a reduction in the amount of groups.
Oh God, yes.
But I want to be able to fail. Maybe that's if a boff dies, they're dead until I'm back in my ship. Not when I respawn, but if a boff dies, they don't come back. They got beamed up to the ship and they're in sickbay.
Oh.
And they're not able to play back. Give me a penalty, but take out so many of the guys, because right now ground combat is just rinse, repeat, way too many times.
You know, I would actually take that a step further and create each group as a pre-made encounter of sorts, rather than just having it a random mishmash of 8 different guys. Have it always be 4 and always be guys that have abilities that complement one another.
So
that you can massively reduce the amount of of killing that you have to do, but make each individual kill more interesting.
Yes, that is a great idea, and also not perfectly, not effectively, but did happen a lot more in Champions.
Yeah.
And I really, really, really like that.
But I think a lot of that was
so much more engaging because I have to return that.
A lot of that was, I think, by chance, just in the way that they designed. But you know what?
Agree.
Good design can happen by accident too.
Yeah, I promised myself that I would never do this, but there are certain times that I find the amount of killing offensive. Because it should be Star Trek at some level.
Yeah, we made a joke during our live one where we had to kill thousands of Orions, destroy their ships by the hundreds of thousands.
For some reason, it's less bothering for me with the ship combat, even though that theoretically would be more. It still bothers me, but the ground combat, I don't know. And I just if it was more of a, I'm not slaughtering them. I'm having to engage with a bad guy who has abilities with another guy that complements, so they're effectively becoming an enemy. And now I'm defending myself, and that's cool. That would be a lot awesome. So I love your suggestion.
Less Sharks versus Jets and more Voltron versus Power Rangers.
And maybe in your model this wouldn't work, but if you continue to use the just existing kind of generic dispersal of guys, give me like shield quadrants or something. There's a decent shield mechanic in space. And we have shields in ground combat, so why isn't that in? That seems like a fundamental piece missing, and it doesn't tie in with my shields.
When you brought this up to me earlier, you actually mentioned Age of Conan, which is another online MMO where they use this kind of facing thing where you try to expose somebody on the right-hand side to use a specific ability that is a right-hand swing. I kind of like that.
I do, and I think in Star Trek Online, you could tie your ability to lower your opponent's shields in with your kits a little more. So now you could make kits a little more interesting in a way, because you could know these types of guys maybe have, covariant shield, whatever your different types of ground shields are. I don't really even know that well anymore, because it's just
who pays attention to that stuff?
Well, it's just my shields are important because they keep me alive, but I don't really have to use them in any tactical way.
Right. And you don't notice them until they're gone.
Exactly. So there's this disconnect where it's just these things that I have, but I would love to have to defeat someone's shields. And then the last thing I would like to see added in ground combat, just to kind of spice it up, because if you factor in all these other things, a little faster, more aggressive enemies, maybe some shields, wouldn't it be nice just to occasionally have the camera shake option? Not to have it on mandatory, but there's camera shake in space combat. And I think it'd be great to have camera shake in ground combat, especially like if I get knocked back. If I get knocked back, I like to see the camera shake a little bit. I think that'd be fun. Definitely has to be an on or off option because I toggle that myself.
It's already in the engine. It shouldn't be a problem to add that. I think it's just a question of figuring out where to.
I don't know. But I think it'd be neat. So those are my suggestions. We'd love to hear yours, so send those over to STOked@jupiterbroadcasting.com.
And they can be anything from as simple as adding camera shake to, well, try not to go as all far out as me, but give us your best ideas. Yep. And pictures are great.
Diagrams always win.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to give us feedback on the show or discuss anything with the community, you can go over to jupitercolony.com. That's our forum. There's a section in there just for Stoked.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's everything.
That's everything I got.
Okay, everybody. Well, until next Tuesday, we'll see you over at jupiterbroadcasting.com.